Hey guys, it's Miji.
And Jack, and we're
And we're
back.
back. Thank
Yeah.
you for joining us for another Q&A Thursday. This week we're going to be going over 17 Hats Best Practices Part 2. Last week we kind of kicked things off with Part 1. Didn't quite get through the list, so we're going to continue on.
We were thinking that we'd get the whole thing done last week, but we didn't realize how many.
There were just so
we
many.
actually had. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to rewatch that, it is on our Facebook page, either above or below, somewhere here. But we talked about emails, templates, lead capture forms, and more. And today, what we are going to talk about, are going to be calendar management, invoices, life cycles, bookkeeping, and if we still have some time left over, we'll touch on workflows, which is our most powerful automation tool. But if we don't get to it, don't worry, because next week we're going to devote an entire week to just talking about workflows.
Nice. Are we going to have a trivia giveaway today, Miji?
Of course. And we have a good question for you guys. So do make sure you take notes or that you're paying attention, because you're going to want to win that 17 Hats t-shirt. I guarantee it.
I agree.
We'll do that at the end. That's how we'll wrap it up.
Yep.
And as always, if you guys have comments or questions, just leave them down in the comments section below. We want to hear from you guys, whether you've been here before or if this is just your first time tuning in. Just drop in and say hello. Definitely let us know what industry you're in. Give us a thumbs up or a heart if you like what you're hearing. And for those of you who are brand new and you're thinking about signing up for 17 Hats, stay tuned, because Jack and I have a special code for you that we're going to share. And you'll save 15% off of our unlimited annual plan. We'll share that in just a second.
Yep, that sounds good.
All right, so a lot of things have been happening here at 17 Hats. We have a small product update with you. So Jack, what has been changing or updating?
Well, we've had a couple of changes that are subtle, but they just make so much sense in our account settings section. You know, one of the things we have is we have a new account settings shortcut. So that's up to the top right. It's a little gear on the top in a circle. Yep. And just by clicking on that, you can go and it'll immediately take you to our account settings. It's just a really quick way to get there. Not too bad. Oh, we just had Monica from Houston join us. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you're hanging in there with all the weather we've been hearing about. It just sounds, doesn't sound like anything.
I hope you're staying dry, Monica.
Yeah.
At least she has Wi-Fi or maybe just data on her phone. So that's good.
Yeah, well, at least she's got a phone, huh?
She's got a phone, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do the new account settings shortcut. There is, we've pretty much rearranged the nomenclature there. What things are under settings, what are under admin, what are under account templates, and what's under financial data. So it's just a new way to organize it, and it seems to be, I've been using it, and it's just much quicker to get back and forth with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now we also have a new marketplace tab, which is pretty nice.
Ooh, down here, right here.
Yep. You can just click on that. It'll take you right to the marketplace.
There we go.
And we've recently added a number of new marketplace templates and template sets. They are all industries outside of photography, so that's going to give us quite a bit more scope as we go. And as you know, we are going to add more and more template sets as we go along. So as we get more users that are developing nice sets of templates for their industry, we're going to be adding those right here.
Perfect. And lots of contracts too, for those of you who need those.
Now, are those contracts legal?
Mm-hmm. They were created by legal professionals. So, definitely people who do this for a living and know what they're talking about. But,
I think that I would still probably check them out with like a local attorney, because they may be different. I know that different states have different rules and laws, so it would be really worthwhile checking those out.
Absolutely. We definitely recommend that. Okay. And anything else going on, Jack, with small features and things? Cool little changes there? Oh,
there's a very new cool feature in the My Template section, and that's that you can go through and now search for email templates. You can search for them by name. Makes it much easier to go and find them. And especially, we had talked as best practices last time that sometimes you want to name your templates based on how you're going to use them. So you might number them, you might do something like that. But you can go through and basically pick up anything at this point and find your different templates.
So if I just type in the first few letters of the template name, it's going to shorten the dropdown basically so that I don't have to scroll. I can actually type in the whole entire name find it really quickly. And this will kick into effect for those of you who have 7 or more emails of the same type saved within your account. Because if you had less than 7, they would all fit in this drop down and you wouldn't have to scroll anyways.
Nice.
But I sure like that. It's the little things that make my life easier.
You know, I know. And actually, we just heard that Debbie has joined us from Central New York, and she wanted to tell Monica in Houston that she hopes that she's okay and keeping warm and dry.
Oh, thank you for joining us, Debbie.
And anybody, if you would like to give us likes or hearts, we would really appreciate it. That is something we look forward to, right?
Yes, please. Yeah,
Okay.
especially if you like what you're hearing. Don't forget to press that button.
All right. So what do you think about getting started with our best practices?
Yeah, let's dive right in, guys. So the first thing we want to talk about really quickly is calendars. And, almost everyone uses a cloud-based calendar right now. And as you know, 17 Hats connects with Google Calendars, which we absolutely recommend that you do. That way your events are syncing between Google as well as your 17 Hats account. And you can sync up to one at a time. And if you run into the issue of, well, I need multiple Google Calendars connected to my account, we do have a workaround. Jack, what would you suggest for those people?
Well, a couple of things. When you get to using Google Calendars, you'll find that you have a Google account, and within that, you have a Google Calendar. And within those calendars, you can have as many sub-calendars as you like, but they're all associated with your main Google account. Mm-hmm. Now, what we recently found, and the workaround, we are kind of at this point in 17 Hats, you can only have Google Calendars from one account added into it. A lot of people would like to add additional ones, and there is a workaround to do that. And basically what it is that you'll go into, say, the person with the other Google account goes in and edits their Google Calendar, shares it with you, mm-hmm. and they share it in the mode where they have read and write mode. They put in your email address, and then the next time you go to look at your Google Calendar, you can go and add that Google Calendar so it shows up as one of yours. So Awesome. It's a very simple fix. We have just go into our help section and look up Google Calendar, and that will pop up as one of the topics.
Yep.
It really works well, and it's so simple.
It's so simple. And if you wanted to create your own sub-calendars, you can do that right in Google settings. You could really create as many as you'd like. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why you'd want to create more than one calendar. But yeah, sharing is definitely one method. Making as many as you'd like on your own is another.
Right.
Speaking of multiple calendars, now another thing you can do instead of 17 Hats is create 17 Hats calendars. Now, these are going to be native to the app, meaning they're going to stay inside of your account and they won't sync anywhere. And the reason why you might want to do something like that is, let's say you want to really organize things so that it's not all cluttering up your same schedule. So if you want to keep track of client birthdays, let's say client anniversaries, even to-do items, sometimes it's nice to just have those in a different color and be able to turn your calendar view on and off depending on what you want to look at separately. Right. If you put them on different calendars, you can do that. And with 17 Hats, they'll stay inside the app, but the next time you log in, you're able to see all of those. And for me, I love having my client birthdays on there because as I move through each day, I can see in pink whose birthdays are coming up and I can give them a call or send them an email, sometimes a gift basket. And then that way, you're just keeping up that relationship with your client, making it personal, and it really takes no effort on your time because your calendar is just going to let you know.
You know what else is kind of nice about that is that a lot of people are very visual, so yes. They can associate different things with different color calendars. So it's just a really good way to organize yourself. You may want to have, you could either use Google Calendars or you could use a 17 Hats calendar, for instance, if you want to just put a place on prospective business. So leads are asking you for certain dates, and you want to be able to split that out.
Yep.
And be able to know the difference between something that is proposed and something that is really booked.
Right.
I think you had a really good story last time about people going and missing business because they couldn't tell what was booked and what was really just a prospect's lead. Right.
It happens all the time. People will say, I'm looking at a date and I've noticed there was an event up there and I just assumed that was a project, that was a session, that's something that was booked. I turned away a lead and I told them I wasn't available just to go back later on and open up that project and realize, oops, that was another lead who had inquired about that date and they actually hadn't signed their contract or paid their deposit. I really shouldn't have been holding that date for them. And had that project and that event been saved on a separate calendar, it's much easier for you to distinguish between what the status of that is, which is why we recommend you have a leads calendar and then you have one for booked events.
Okay. Now, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but we just got a question from Monica, and what she's asking, she said she just bought some templates from the new template store.
Yep.
But there are some there that she's not going to use at the moment. Can she delete those? And if she does delete them, can she get them back again?
Yes, absolutely. I will share my screen just so you can see. 1 second.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So let me go back to my marketplace really quickly. Okay, let's see if I've purchased any. I have. Okay, great. So anytime you delete a template out of your purchase, you can always go back to this purchase template section, find the pack or the item that you want to reinstall. And basically I would click into that and you'll see a little reinstall button here, which if I click that, it's going to put those templates back into my account. And what the system is actually doing is it's searching through my templates and workflows for the exact same template name. So if this one, oops, I didn't mean to open that up. So if this template, let's say, has been deleted and it doesn't recognize that this name is in the account, it's going to go ahead and reinstall it. So it won't give you duplicates, let's say, of everything else, just what's missing.
Now, so one of the things it tells me is that maybe what you want to do when you start using a template and start personalizing it yourself, maybe you want to subtly change the name of it. And that way, if you have to go back and get it, you will still have copies of the one you changed as well as the one you've just reloaded so that you can find out and make your changes again.
Yep, that is a great idea. And Monica, I just want to thank you again for tuning in. And for those of you who are out there in Houston, just want to give you guys a shout out. I hope you guys are all doing okay. You're staying dry. We're thinking of you. We're sending you our, wishes and good thoughts. So let us know if you're here in this Q&A. We'd love to hear from you and just make sure that you guys are all doing good.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. Now, Jack, I have a question for you. What's going to happen if I have a calendar in 17 Hats and I have projects and everything saved on it? What if I deleted that calendar? Will I lose everything?
It will disappear so fast.
Oh, no. Okay, so I probably shouldn't do that.
No, I guarantee you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
If you're using a calendar and you have it like for events or you have it as for project dates and stuff, do not delete that calendar.
Right. And so if you ever, let's say, change your password to your Google Calendar and you want to make sure to push through that sync one more time, we have a, update calendar button or refresh.
Yep.
Yeah. You want to make sure you click on that, never disconnect or reconnect, because like we just said, you will lose the projects and the events saved on there.
Yep.
You don't want to do that. It's going to be a headache to put those back on.
Yep.
Okay. All right, and just as a quick reminder, because we mentioned this earlier, if you're interested in joining 17 Hats today, new users can save up to 15% on our unlimited annual plan. And all you have to do is, I'll show you guys really quickly, just got to use a little code. There's only about 4 fields you got to fill out, so it's very easy to do so. Okay, and if you happen to be on your phone, feel free to screenshot this right now, just so later on you can type in the URL. But all you have to do is go to that link, type in your information, get started today, and save 15% on our most popular plan.
Right.
Yep. And Travis will also post this in the comment section down below if you're in there.
Nice.
Perfect.
Very nice.
All right. What else we got?
Well, we didn't talk about invoices last week. Do we have any best practices there, do you think?
Ooh, we sure do. So one of my favorite features that we have at 17 Hats are invoice reminders. So if you're the type of person where you're using payment plans, you're taking installments of 2, 3, 4, however many, sometimes your clients forget that they have a payment that's coming up. Sometimes you forget that you're supposed to get paid. So if you turn on invoice reminders inside of 17 Hats, an automatic email will be sent out for you one day before the payment is due and once a month for past due payments. So you don't have to do the work of following up and having to remember. And Jack, are we still there?
I am.
Oh, I thought I lost you for a second.
No, I'm still here. So we can do that with the invoice reminders. It's a good way to, you can go and personalize the email that's going to go out, but you can't change the frequency of when it does go out. But I think it's a good way that you don't actually have to deal with a weekly basis calling people up and asking them for payment. It's just a good way to have it go out. It's a little bit more comfortable for everybody, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is to get the money in.
Yep. get paid faster.
Yep.
And, you don't have to lift a finger if the system's automatically doing that for you. Yeah, especially when you're dealing with a lot of clients.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, something else that's really kind of a neat thing is we have something called an invoice footer, and you can set this by going to invoice options in the account setup fields. What an invoice footer will do is you can put information in there and it will print at the bottom of each of your invoices. So this is like a good place if you want to put information like general information, maybe your address. You want to put in stuff like your refund policy, address for a check, maybe thank you note, thank you for paying your bill, whatever. That's just a good place to put it in. Very easy. You can personalize it, and you can go and change it. And every invoice that gets sent out will have that message on the bottom. Now, this is also, the invoice options is the place where you would go to set your invoice reminders, which we just talked about.
And you can turn those on and off at your preference. If you decide later on, I don't want to send those anymore, just toggle it off, hit save. Okay. Yep. And again, that was under account settings, under the invoice options button, if you guys need to look that up.
Right. Okay. Now, the next thing that we were talking about in invoices, don't edit an invoice after it's been paid, because
why not?
It's illegal.
Ah, okay. Not trying to break the law here.
Right. So, in general, I think a rule of thumb is you don't touch an invoice after a payment has been made to it. So even if it's a partial payment, you go through. If you need to add something to it, just go and send them an additional invoice.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the most common use case is the client comes back and they say, I want one more item, or I want to upgrade, which is fantastic. But the last thing you want to do is actually edit the paid invoice, adjust the balance, or change the tax or anything like that. Yeah.
Right. So that could be for a paid invoice as well as a partial payment on an invoice.
Correct.
So once any type of payment has been made to an invoice, don't touch it.
Yep.
And if you have to go back, add something else, send them another invoice.
Perfect. Yep. Now, there may be times where you send out an invoice and your client doesn't pay it. And let's say they cancel their session and they're no longer moving forward with the project. What would you recommend we do in that case, Jack? Should I just leave the invoice as it is outstanding? Is that going to affect my bookkeeping and mess things up inside of my account at all? Well,
if you leave it as outstanding, yes, it'll always show the balance is due on that. And it's probably not what you want to do. So there are a number of different ways you can do that. But you can kind of, in quotes, void out an invoice by maybe going and just applying another line item into it that zeroes out the amount. So if it's a $100 invoice, they're not going to pay it, you're not going to do it. Go in and put a line item invoice into that and say, okay, person has canceled, and put that item in for minus $100. And then that way the invoice will show as zero.
There we go. And that's what I want. And it's not going to mess up my P&L at all, because all I'm doing is adjusting the balance on there.
Right.
I'm not taking in money. I'm not taking money off. So you're going to be just fine. And Jack, one of our favorite people in the world, John's here, and so is Alexa. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
Nice. Very nice.
Ask a question. Ask us a question. Try to stump us. I'm going to regret saying that.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say that.
All
maybe
right.
one of the things all right, now tell me something. Now, suppose you have a recurring invoice and you want to stop it. What's the best way to do that?
Okay. So what you don't want to do is go in and actually delete the invoice itself. You want to delete the recurrence of the invoice. So once you create a recurring invoice, and all you have to do is check off the recurring invoice box inside the template, and you start the recurrence, so invoices are going out. When you want to stop it, you'll see when you go to important documents, there's going to be a recurrence template, and that's the one that you want to delete, not the actual invoices that have been sending, right? Because as we talked about, you don't want to really delete anything outside of 17 hats.
Well, and in most cases too, even if you're stopping the recurrence of it, those invoices that they already paid, you want to keep them in the account.
You sure do. You want to delete that out. It's going to mess up the bookkeeping and everything. And that's deleting the invoice isn't stopping the recurrence. It has to be the actual recurrence template that has to be deleted.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So another thing that I see happening a lot is people creating invoices again and again and again for consultations, deposits, items that they're using frequently. And they have the products saved inside of their account. So they're plugging them in, they're adding on the payment schedules and the tax settings, which is fine. You are saving time there. But just remember, if you are billing someone for the same thing over and over and over again, make sure to make that into an invoice template so that all you have to do the next time you need to bill someone is pull up the entire template that has the product, that has the payment schedule, that has the tax settings, the notes, or whatever it is, all saved. And if you need to tweak it, you can. If you want to change the verbiage or take the discount off or add one on, you can absolutely do so, but save yourself the time of having to recreate that over and over. I think last week I spoke with a lady and she said, well, there's times where sometimes I apply a discount and it's a 50% down now, 50% later, and sometimes it's no discount, paid in full, and I have to adjust it every time. And I said, no, well, if those are the only two options, you should have an invoice template for one scenario, an invoice template for another, and all you got to do is just choose the appropriate one to use. That's it.
Right. It makes it so much easier to use because, it's there and you pull in the right one when you want to use it and send it. Saves you a lot of time and a lot less work. We just heard Lorenzo has joined us again. Lorenzo, welcome. He's busy driving someplace. So
back for another Thursday, Lorenzo.
Yeah. So you got to be careful when you're driving. So
he's not looking. He's just listening.
Okay, that's good. Okay, good. Well, welcome. What else can we? How about we go through? What do we do if we want to process a refund for somebody?
Okay. Should I share my screen for this one, perhaps?
That'd probably be a good one.
Okay. Give me a second. We'll get there in just a moment. Okay. All right. So I got to find an invoice. I'm going to hit my documents tab. I'll use the filter to go to paid invoices, and let's pull up this invoice I sent Alexa. Okay. So here I'm looking at an invoice, right? For $786. It's been marked as paid. Let's say Alexa calls and she goes, it's not working out. She wants her money back. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit the record payment button. And then in the amount section, I'm going to type in a negative amount equal to the refund. So let's say 786. Maybe for reference, I'll put in cancellation, the account, that's applicable method. Let's say whatever the original was, let's say it was credit card.
Yep.
I'll hit apply. Okay, so you can see, oops, did I do that twice accidentally?
Yep.
Hold on.
Yep.
I'll go back. Go back to documents. Alexa, where are you at? Here you go. Okay. So let me remove this one, delete.
Yep.
Remove, hold on, guys. Okay. I'm gonna do this again where she's paid, okay? Okay, she's made a payment. Now I'm recording a negative payment. 786, right? Okay. Cancellation. Okay, play. There we go. Oops.
Okay. Close enough.
Close enough. Well, balance should be 0. And I think it showed, it's reverting back. Let me see if I can refresh.
Well, the one thing to remember with this is, so you're going to go through, there are two things you have to do when you actually do the refund, is you have to go through and zero it out on the invoice, like Miji's doing.
Yep.
But if it's through a credit card, like, so say that you use Square and they paid through Square, you then have to log into your Square account and process the actual refund from there, because we can't give any money back from Square or Stripe or anybody else directly through 17 Hats. You just have to show that the mark the invoice and show that you are giving a refund, and then we go through and go to your Stripe or Square or PayPal or authorized.net account and actually issue the refund from there.
Yep. Exactly. And actually, if I look back at my screen, that was correct. The balance due reverted. It shouldn't have been 0. It should have been 786.
786. So
yeah.
It was right. Yeah.
It was right. I'm just doing my math incorrectly in my head. But basically, you want to make sure that the invoice is reflecting the refund. And then, as Jack mentioned, go back to the payment processor and actually process the refund back to your client.
Yep. Always a good way to do it.
Yeah. And that way your bookkeeping will reflect that change too.
Yep.
Okay. So a question that I get pretty often is the difference between quotes and invoices. I think a lot of the times when someone comes over to 17 Hats, they're using pen and paper and they're sending one PDF that has the products, it has their terms and conditions, it's got the payment plan, it's kind of all combined in one. And when you come into 17 Hats, sometimes people get a little confused as to what the quote is for and does, and versus, some of the functionalities of an invoice. So just to kind of clarify on that, on a quote, you are basically offering an estimate to your client and they can make a selection on it. So they can choose items, either choose one from a list or choose any or none from a list. You can also have just standard items on there. And based on the selection the client makes, the total at the bottom will adjust automatically. Versus on an invoice, there's no selection to be made. It's a bill that you're sending. So there's no picking and choosing.
You just want them to pay that amount.
Just want to get the money. Yep. And on a quote, as we mentioned, it's an estimate, right? So your client can't necessarily pay directly on the quote unless you've checked off the option for the quote to convert to an invoice automatically right after they make their selection. And of course, on an invoice, once the client receives it, they can automatically hit that pay button if you've allowed online payments and either pay by ACH or credit card.
Yep. So it's actually, with our quotes, we have different types of quote items that you can add. So you can have an item that they either have to accept or not accept, like down payment. Okay. But you can also have choose any option. So suppose you have 3 packages you're offering. Maybe you're a photo booth set up, maybe you're something like that. You could have a package A, package B, and package C. And when you use a choose one option like this, you can go through, they can choose one of those 3, but they cannot choose more. They have to choose one or else they can't do the quote. But they can't choose any more than one. You wouldn't want to have both a package A and a package B at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other option that they have at that point is they can add a la carte items. And this is a good way we found for people to kind of bump up the ticket price of their of this particular quote. You can offer them, like if it's a wedding, you could offer them additional mother-in-law albums. So you could offer them additional 8x10s, and these are items that they can pick and choose and just add at that point. Yep. So it's just a really good way to do that.
Good add-ons and opportunities to upsell your clients. All right, Jack, we have a question from Alexa.
I know. I was just looking at that, and that's kind of interesting. And this goes back like one step before the quotes when we were talking about invoices. And basically we were saying is that you were talking about invoice settings, and I saw a currency there. Can this be set on a per invoice basis, or is it account-wide?
Good question.
This is really important.
This is very important.
When you set a currency, you are setting it on an account-wide basis. So if you set the US dollar or the euro or one other thing, you should really kind of keep that, because everything in your account is going to run based on that. Your bookkeeping is going to run based on that, and this and that. Now, if you see the need to be switching currencies back and forth, so say you're up in Canada, right on the border of the US, you do a lot of business directly in Canada, but you also do a lot of business in the US using the US dollar, we would recommend that you go and set up an additional branding account and run everything for that. So run one account for Canadian dollars and one account for US dollars. It's kind of interesting. If you have an unlimited account that isn't restricted to the number of things, you can go and add additional branding accounts at no more cost to you. It's included in the price of your original subscription. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, you're able to separate out the 2 currencies, because you can't mix the 2 together. It just doesn't work. Right.
And one of the other reasons why you may want to take advantage of the multi-brand feature is, let's say if you have different businesses that you manage, create a separate account for that, and you can toggle between them really easily without having to sign out and then sign back in. I have some people who just, have different logos that they want to use sometimes, or want to send emails out of different outgoing servers, or just some of the unique account settings that are global to your 17 Hats account. If you want to tweak those, you can always create a new account so that you can just kind of go in between each one, like currency, business name, all that good stuff.
Right. And, what we found is that with a lot of small businesses, people are not doing just one thing. These days, people have to have multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is kind of a perfect way to separate out those different businesses and be able to keep track of each business separately. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't cost you anymore.
It doesn't. Yeah. Take advantage of it now, you guys. It's really easy to get started. And really, it's just, your account settings that you got to change. So it's a good way to tackle that currency question.
So that was a great question, Alexa. Thank you.
Thank you.
So back to quotes, you think?
Back to quotes. Okay. Yeah, we had one really important thing we do want to mention is when you're sending a quote, one cool thing that you can do inside of 17 Hats is also attach a contract and invoice. And so what that means is when you send all 3 documents in one mailing, your client's going to be presented with the quote where they're going to make their selection and hit accept. And then it's going to take them onto the contract where they can review your terms and conditions and then type in their electronic signature and then move on to the invoice as the last step where they can, pay whatever's due, or if they choose to pay in full, they can as well. But what that's going to happen is it prevents how sometimes people can pay the invoice before they sign your contract and then they never sign the contract and then you run into issues there. So this ensures that they go through the steps in the right order and everything's completed all in one mailing. So there's no back and forth of sending things over and over again or having to get on the phone. Or as one of our friends, Baraka, mentioned, she used to have to drive to go see her clients to get the contract signed. And that was like an entire hour out of her day. So you guys can say goodbye to that. You can send all 3 documents all at once now. And then with the invoice, you can send it all on its own if you wanted to, or the contract just all by itself. Of course, if you want to just send the quote to someone, that's okay too.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really good about that is what we have noticed and what our other 17 Hats users have noticed when they go and do a combination like a quote, contract, invoice, or you can also do just a quote and invoice. Things get turned around a lot faster. Things get signed faster, and you get paid faster.
Yeah.
So
and really your clients like it. I think that's the most important part is you'll hear your customers say, "Boy, that was easy." And that
it's just so easy. It's just so easy to do and so much faster. You're not going back and forth. You're getting everything done at one time and just getting your business done.
Yeah. And that's what we're here to help with. And, remember these copies are live. So if you make an update on one, again, don't edit your invoices after the fact, but if you need to make a small change, it's really easy to make a revision and just to have your clients see it on their end. And then, of course, they'll have that copy forever. It's going to live inside of their email. They'll always have the link to it. They can share it with someone if they wanted to. Like the bride may want to, email it over to the groom, let's say, and they can always reference that document later on. They don't have to print it out and have it saved inside of a file folder anywhere. Those days are gone.
Yep, that's nice. So
everyone's happy.
Just as a review for anybody that's joined us since we originally started, we are going through and doing part 2 of our best practices for different sections of 17 Hats and what you should do, what our customers are doing, and some really quick things that people have found as we go along.
Yep.
So if you like what you're hearing, we would really appreciate it if you give us some likes or give us some hearts. And any questions you have, just type them in, and Travis will pass them up to us.
Yep. Or just say hello. Let us know where you're coming from. Yeah, what your business is. It's always fun to get to know you guys.
Yep. Now, we have a couple of, we're kind of at the point where we've been going over the best practices part 2, and we're getting along. We got a bunch of stuff to do.
Yep.
And what we're going to do before we get into in-depth talking about workflows, and maybe that gets pushed off the next week, but we're going to do some best practices for your workflows.
Yep.
Okay. Now, a couple of things we found, and I'm just going to say this. I want you to sit back and think about it for a second. The hard work of doing a workflow isn't sitting down there and typing in your workflow. That's what I call assembly of workflow. Mm-hmm. Okay. The hard work of doing a workflow is to actually sit down someplace and figure out what your workflow is. One of the things, I've seen people fail putting workflows together because they just sit down at the computer and they start doing stuff and typing it in there. But they really haven't done the hard work at that point, and that's give thought to the process. So one of the things we recommend, we'll talk about this more in depth, but we kind of recommend that you go through and get a piece of paper and a pencil. I always like a pencil in this case. Put 3 columns on it. Oh, look at that. Isn't that nice?
On a Google Sheet, yep. Or Google Doc.
Yep, very nice. And you could go at this point and say, okay, your first step maybe is to send out an email or a questionnaire. We want to determine what the frequency of that is, or like when that should happen. Should that happen right away, or should that happen 2 days after a previous event, or in this case, immediately after the workflow has been started? And then, very important, what people don't think about is, what template are you going to need to send that email out? It makes a lot of sense. When you go and actually go to assemble your workflow, you are going to have all the templates set up ahead of time, and you just pull them in and use them. Did we do that already?
We did that in 3 seconds. Yes, we did.
That is so nice. I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty easy when you list it out like this. Just 3 columns, all you need. And the most important part is really figuring out when you want the step to occur. Right. And then if a template is required, and think to yourself, do you already have the template maybe saved somewhere? It's in your email drafts, or if it's something that you still need to create. And this kind of gives you a little to-do list of what items you still need. And then one thing I do want to touch on really quickly is anytime you create a workflow, keep in mind that each one can have one base date. And that base date is going to be the reference for all of these due dates. So when we say, I want this email to happen 1 day after the base date, 3 days after the base date, that's what we're referring to. Most of the time, that's your project date. It's your, wedding shoot day. It's the birthday party day, whatever it is. But you can adjust that to any calendar date that you want. So right. It could be the day that the inquiry came in. It could be the engagement shoot day. It could be, whatever the case is, just remember whatever date you put in here is going to determine what a lot of these steps, when they occur.
Okay. Now, one question for you, Miji, is, so we're looking at these and we've got this laid out. We're going to put it together. And I really recommend that we go through and test it on ourselves. You add yourself in as a test with the project, and then go through and test it on yourself. Now, the question is, you've put this happens 3 days later, this happens 4 days later. Are you going to sit around for 3 or 4 days and wait for the next step to happen?
I don't have time for that. So what I'm going to do is I'll duplicate the workflow. So I'm not adjusting the master copy that I just made. I'll make a little duplicate of it, which all you have to do is click on edit and duplicate. And then I'll change the timing of all my steps to be immediately after the previous one has been completed. Because then what I can do is I set myself up as a test contact using a different email than the one associated with my 17 Hats account. And I can go through the workflow. I can send myself the emails or fill out my own questionnaires. And then I'll have to wait 4 days in between for the next step to kick in, because it'll just, happen automatically for me. And it's a good way to go through your own client experience, see if you need to make any changes.
And it's a good way to make sure that everybody is getting, like your client will be getting the right form at the right time.
Yeah.
Just a good way to check. It's just like anything else these days, you want to go through before you start sending these things out to your clients without testing them or this or that. Sit back, spend a little time, and actually check and make sure everything is happening correctly. And also you get a real good feel for what your what your client is going to see.
Yep. And Jack, I just keep thinking about our friend Baraka, who was here a couple of weeks ago, when she said, when she finally built her workflows and started using them, not only was she getting her stuff done, but she realized that there were some inefficiencies and redundancies that she needed to take care of. And she realized she wasn't charging enough for her time.
Yeah.
She was doing so much work, and, she has a lot of self-worth and value. And she said, it's time to raise my prices. And she did. And the clients still came. And I think that's just an incredible story of what happens when you standardize your process and you're able to put it down somewhere into something that's tangible and look at it and go through it and be able to tweak it and change it. Because it's hard when your process is in your head. It's hard to look at what's working, what's not working, but building that workflow, I think that exercise in itself can reveal a lot to you just about what you're doing, what's working and what's not.
Yeah, and we've heard from so many people that doing things like that will go through, and actually you will go and change the way you do things, because this is one that you've really thought out the process, and it gives you a good chance to refine it and maybe make things a little bit more streamlined than you were doing it before.
Yep.
We have a question from Ernesto. We also would like to welcome Athena and Tina, who have joined us. So thank you so much for the likes.
Hey guys, thank you.
Now, Ernesto has a question, and I basically think he's asking, let's see, is there a form that a employee for your company could fill out to populate everything for a particular client? Now, I'm not 100% sure what we're looking at here, but I think what he's looking for is a way for you as your employees to go through and add somebody into the system quickly. And for that, what we would probably recommend is to go through, create a lead capture form that you are going to use just for yourself. It's just reserved for employees to use, not something that you're going to post or anybody else is going to fill out, but fill out that lead capture form, add it in there, and it makes it much faster when your employees are, say, talking to somebody on a phone and they want to add the information in. They type the information. It serves as a script to make sure that they are asking all the right questions. And it will also, at the end of that, it's inputted into the system, and there is both the lead record and a project for them.
Yep. And you can access the lead capture form no matter where you are, because it's a live URL. Either you log into your account if you need to and pull up the form, or if you happen to have the link somewhere, I mean, I would even go to my own website if I needed to and find the form that's installed on there and just fill it out.
Yep.
You can fill it out as many times as you'd like. You can share that link with someone. If you need to. Sometimes people put it inside of their email campaign when they're blasting like 300 people, and they'll say, hey, if you're interested and you want to sign up, just click on the link below and fill out the form. And guess what? That information comes into your 17 Hats account. A contact gets created, or if they already exist, a new project gets created for them. And you didn't do anything. All you did was just present them with an easy way to get in touch with you.
Yep. And another thing to remember is that link. A link for a lead capture form is the only link within 17 Hats that you can send out to multiple people. And each time somebody fills it out, it will go through. We have a, maybe take
Can you see my whole screen, Jack? I made it smaller.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So if we go to a lead capture form and just look at the one you have, so maybe preview it.
Okay.
If you take a look at that link up top, that is a link for a lead capture form, and anybody, you could give that to 1,000 people, and each person that goes and fills that out will have a lead record and a project created for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only form in 17 Hats you can do that with, because every other form, so if you send somebody a contract or a questionnaire, those are expressly for the person whose project you're sending it from. So for instance, if we went to a record and sent this one right here, it's an invoice. That is going to pay nothing but the invoice for Laura Smith. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to send that out to everybody and have them, I mean, I suppose it would be okay for Laura if somebody else was paying her invoice, but we really don't want to do that. So just keep it in mind that lead capture form is the only link you can send out to billions of people, have them fill out. Everything else is very dedicated towards the customer or lead that we're sending it to.
Yep.
Okay.
And Jack, do we want to talk a little bit more about workflows, or do we want to save that for next week? I can go either way.
I don't know. Let's talk real quick about a couple things. Like what I really like, starting your workflows. There are a number of ways to start a workflow. You can go through it.
Yeah.
You could actually go through into somebody's project, click the plus button, and add a workflow there. But with recent changes that we've made to the lead capture form, you can have somebody come into the system, fill out a lead capture form, and as soon as they hit submit, that will create the lead record and the project, but it will also start a workflow going.
Nice.
So you don't have to be there when this is happening. You know, you can kind of, it's automated, it just goes on, and it's a quick way to get things started. So there are two ways to start workflows from lead capture forms. You can have it so that you set it up in the administrative session, and that no matter what is asked for in that lead capture form, it will always start the same workflow. So in this case, that would go down to that section, and that's where you'd set that right there under workflow, right in the top section. And whatever you set for workflow there, that would start as soon as it's submitted. Now, one of the coolest things that I have ever seen is that you can go through and ask a list question within your lead capture form. So you have a list question. So suppose you're a photographer doing senior pictures. You can go through and set that up and say, do you want package 1, which is 28 by 10s? Do you want package 2? Do you want package 3? Or do you want package 4? And based on what they choose as that the answer to that question, it can start a different workflow. Okay, so that's pretty easy to set up.
Doing that right now. So for each answer choice, I'm just choosing whatever workflow I want to start. Maybe they're all different. Maybe two of them are the same and the third one's different. Whatever the case is, you know?
Right. So it doesn't just have to be for senior pictures. It could be for going through and saying, okay, are you interested in family portraits, wedding pictures? Are you interested in baby pictures? Whatever it is, you can set it up and have the answers to that question start a different workflow.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have it in the top part or the bottom. You just have to choose one area. So if they're in a list question as they are here, you can't start it from the top portion of the lead capture form.
Yep.
But it's just, I really want you to think about that and think of the possibilities that gives you.
How powerful that is, especially some people, you know, their first step is to send out an invoice. It's that same invoice each and every time. Register now. We'll send you a bill for $25.
Right. Or if you want to use the lead capture question, you can go and have them choose from a list of things and have it send out a different invoice for a different amount.
Love that.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, think about your process, what things you want to automate. If you can build that out into a workflow, why not have it be triggered, you know, the next time the form gets filled out? Now, a new thing that we just came out with, Jack, that I'm very excited about is within a workflow, you can also trigger another workflow, right? Because sometimes you may have multiple sets of templates for the different things you go through. Let's say if there's like a fork in the road and you have one workflow if, you know, the client chooses X, maybe another workflow if the client chooses Y, whatever the case is. Now we have an action step where you can, instead of sending a document or an email, you can trigger another workflow.
Yep. And
just like a regular action step, you can choose to either have that workflow start automatically, or if you want to approve before starting, you can do that too.
Now, I think one of the things that's really very powerful about that in itself is if you have that workflow set to be approved before it starts, that will give you the option to maybe switch out a different workflow based on the circumstances that have happened on things that have happened before. If you have it set to automatically happen, it just takes the current workflow that's listed in that item and just starts it going.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But very powerful feature.
Yep. We're always trying to make it easier for you guys.
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to note for those of you who are going to go ahead and create a workflow after this, if you see those little phases, make sure you create the phases first before adding in your steps. And phases are essentially just like these little blocks that help you kind of segment your steps. And it's helpful if you group things together. Let's say you get to a section and you know all those follow-ups you have within a certain phase don't apply anymore. You can just delete the entire phase instead of having to go through each step and delete it out of there if they're no longer necessary. You don't have to use them, but it's a really good way of organizing. Just make sure if you want to take advantage of it, create the phases first, then add in your steps, because you can't, not yet, but you can't move steps between phases. We're working on it. But I don't want you guys to have to do the same work twice. So for now, just make sure you create the phases first.
Now, something else that's very important, I think, with workflows and something to think about is when you go through and create workflows like ahead of time, you are creating them as templates. So they're sitting there, all the different workflow templates. You can choose those and apply those to a lead or to a contact. Now, when you go and basically go and apply that workflow to a contact, you are taking a copy of that workflow as it is at the time and attaching it to somebody. Now, let's say that you've gone through and done this, and then you go through and say, well, I'm going to make a tweak to the workflow template. When you tweak the template itself, it will not go and change any active templates at the time, anything that's attached to a customer. So just keep that in mind. You'll find as you work with workflows that they're kind of while they can be very solid, you also may go through and tweak them a lot. You know, as you find out different things and you come up with different ways of doing things, you're just going to go back and make them a living sort of thing, a living workflow. It's not like it'll always stay that way. So just remember that if you're going to change something in the template, it will not affect any of the current workflows that are running on customer accounts.
Good to know. And Jack, I just want to make sure we say hello to Courtney, who's joined us. Looks like you're just tuning in. And just to let you know, this conversation is about our 17 Hats best practices. So all the tips and tricks that we've seen from power users and real business owners who are using these practices. We're kind of going through all the different topics and things that we should do, but we're actually just about to wrap up right now because I can't believe time has flown. We're about 50 minutes in, and for those of you who've been listening, we want to do the trivia giveaway really quickly.
Yep.
So if you want to win a 17 Hats t-shirt, and Jack, I think we may need to adjust our question because we didn't quite get to this topic, so I don't think it's fair to ask this trivia question just yet, unless you want to.
Well, no, I mean, I wouldn't want to put them at an unfair advantage. Do you have another question maybe we could use?
Let's ask, when do invoice reminders go out if you choose to turn them on?
Good one.
Yes.
Good one.
One of my favorite ones.
And just put that in the comments section, and Travis will be doing our calculation at the time and let us know who was the first person with the correct answer.
Yep.
And there are 2 parts to that answer, aren't there?
Yes, there are. And
Okay.
I'm okay with either part, or if you get both, good on you. Maybe you'll get more than just a t-shirt. We'll see. But even if you don't know, just leave a guess down below. We're going to take a peek. And I know someone out there knows the answer because you guys are all really smart.
Yep. Bum, 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 bum.
And while we wait, I'm just going to share with you guys one more time. If you are considering joining 17 Hats, do make sure to use our link that's shown on the screen right now. Take a screenshot of it on your phone. If you're on mobile, you need to come back to it later. But you can save 15% on our most popular plan, the Unlimited Annual. If you want to join, and that includes access to the multi-brand feature that we kind of talked about today, where you can use different brands, different currencies, no cap on the number of projects or anything like that. You'll have access to bookkeeping. So do check that out.
Look at Travis says that Samantha has answered the question. She got the full question right. It says that 1 day before and 30 days after the due date. But you know what? She has a t-shirt already.
Well, Samantha, what else would you like? We got hats. We got green t-shirts. Do you have a green 17 Hats t-shirt?
Nice hats. Very nice hats.
Actually, Jack there it is.
There we go.
I think the screen is still on me. Say something, Jack, so it goes to you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, here is a 17 Hats. Very nice to wear around the neighborhood. And you'd be surprised how many people ask you what this is about.
Yeah, they'll stop and talk to you. And how cool is it to have a 17 Hats hat?
Yep.
Let us know if you want that. A green shirt. Awesome.
Okay.
You got it. We have some fun ones. Samantha, just stay on Facebook after this because I'll message you to get your size and your mailing address.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's good. Now I have one more thing. We didn't get nearly as far as I thought we would, Miji.
We talk too much, I think.
Well, that could be it too. So I think maybe what we're going to do, I just want to talk about leads real quick.
Okay.
Suppose a lead doesn't pan out. You want to just delete that from the system?
I would never delete a contact out of 17 Hats, especially if it's a lead, because you know what? That's a hard-earned lead, and maybe I spent money getting that lead in marketing, Facebook ads, or whatever it is. So what I would do, instead of taking them out of the system, deleting their contact information, I'm going to change their contact type over to cold prospect so that they're no longer, in my view of hot leads or anything like that. They're still in the system. I can archive their project if I want to. Yep. And I wouldn't necessarily archive the contact just because if that person sends me an email in the future, I want to make sure it comes into the system. So,
right. So if a contact is archived or a lead is archived, you won't know it if any emails come in. So basically just go and archive the project, leave the contact as active, and you'll know if they ever contact you again. Another good reason to save all these people is that even though you may not be able to do business with them now, perhaps later on you want to put a tag in when they decide that they don't want to do anything, like a tag like not enough money or budget conscious, something like that. Later on, you could go through and pull everybody out by tags, export the files, and maybe put it into something like MailChimp and do a mailing when you're having a sale and you have better prices or lower prices, and it might interest that person.
There we go. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we have any other questions while we are still here? Leave it down in the comments below. It can be on anything, could be on something we talked about or an idea for next week, which I guess we'll finish up our list. I don't think there's too much on there, Jack, and we definitely want to really dive deep into workflows next time.
Yep.
Whether you've never heard the term before or if you're just getting started or if you're a workflow pro, we do have a little bit of everything for all the different skill levels. So I think it'll be really helpful for you to come. But yeah, always, we're open to new topics. If there's something that you definitely want us to hit and discuss, let us know and we'll make it happen for you.
Yeah, I think that's good. So I really have to thank everybody for joining us today, and we really appreciate all the likes and hearts that you've given us. And if you haven't, it might be the time to do that right now.
Yep. Last few ones, guys.
Yep, that would be good. And we would really hope that you join us next week. We'll go through and finish up. I think it looks like really the next section we should just hit on best practices. We'll be talking about bookkeeping.
Yep.
And maybe we can get through that and get started on our workflow in depth.
Perfect. And then if you have any other questions, guys, remember you can always email support@17hats.com. Or if you have an account, just click on that messenger icon in the lower right-hand corner.
Oh, yeah.
Our business support team is fantastic, and they're available during the weekdays. So if you need to chat with us, just start a conversation there. And help.17hats.com is always there as well if you need articles, video tutorials. I like to go there because I don't have time during the day to talk to anyone. So I will always just read and, watch the videos and everything. So you can also message us through there if you'd like.
And one of the other things, and I just like to pass this on to everybody, is you have a lot of people, they don't necessarily have a hard time getting started. They don't want to touch anything. One of the things that you're going to do to really learn 17 Hats is just to sit down and play with it.
Yep.
Okay. Cut out an hour. I know you're busy, but maybe cut out 45 minutes, an hour. Sit down and just play with it and try things out. You're going to all of a sudden have I think it's those aha sort of moments where, oh, doesn't this make sense?
Yep. You won't regret it, guys. And the time that you invest into this, you're going to get back tenfold, really. You can start automating things, even just in getting organized. Like when I first put templates in there and all I had to do was just click them to use, and I wasn't like looking for them or retyping, and the tokens were pulling in all my information. That in itself was a game changer. So just poke around, explore. If you need help, we're here. If you need to read up on an article, we have those as well. Or just come to next week's session when we sit down and talk to you guys again. We'll be here on Thursday, same time.
Okie doke.
All right. Everybody have a good long weekend. Hope you guys have some fun plans. I know Jack's looking forward to it. Be safe.
Yeah, be safe.
Yeah. And for all of those of you guys out there in Texas, again, we just hope you're doing okay. Leave a comment down below if you guys are watching. We want to hear from you, and best thoughts and wishes to you all.
All right.
Okay.
See you next week.
Next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.